Welcome to episode 14 of Created by Design. Today we're going to talk about needles. We're going to talk about little storage bins, why we use certain needles, and how I store my needles, and a few other various and sundry little tidbits. So thank you for joining. I'm actually going to change the position of my camera now so you can see what I'm talking about. So thank you for joining. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about needles and how I store my needles and a little bit about the different types of needles that we have and why I use the particular needles that I do. I didn't used to keep my needles in this box. Now I do, and this works perfect for me. I did have them for several years. Circular needles. When I switched over to circular needles, I started using this holder, which I thought in the beginning was a terrific idea. It's made, I was gotten at a knit shop, and the idea is that these little needle packets would slip in here and or take the needle out and just put it in the packet itself. Well, I did that until maybe I just got too many needles, and then this didn't really work very sufficiently. The idea is, they're all labeled, which is a terrific idea, but then this is to fold over and tie up. Well, it does. However, I would open it up and I would have needles start to fall out and became very frustrating. So one day I discovered I had this little box, and it's just a plain little box. I really could decorate it and make it pretty. Maybe I'll do that someday. But the little pouch that the needles come in fit perfectly in this box. So then what I did is I made some very, very simple little dividers. So this is number 2, real creative. And these are all of my size 2 circular needles. Now, if you're still using the straight needle like this, you're going to find something else, obviously not this little box. But this is the only one of these that I have left. I had to scrounge to even find this. I don't use straight needles anymore. I find the circular needle, you can do the same thing, but you don't have the weight of your project out here on the end of the needle. And when you're sitting in your recliner chair, for pity's sake, this needle hits on things. Whereas the circular needle, everything is hanging down here and not out on the ends. And so it just, for me, is far more pleasant. So I got rid of these little needles. They all went off to a thrift shop someplace, probably. But so this is how I keep them. And I do keep now all the little packets that they come in because the size is right on it. I have to say I got rid of some of these little packets, and some of these are getting wore out. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I can go on Amazon and find some of these little Ziploc packets, because they really do work well for keeping your needles in order. In this packet here, for instance, I have two needles. They're the same size, but they're 2 different styles of needles. And I have metal needles, which this is, and I have a wood needle in here. And I use both. And why do we use a metal needle sometimes, and why do we use a wood needle? I don't think there is any written rule. I've never seen one. For me, it comes down to what feels the best once your yarn is on the needle and you've been knitting a few rows. I've been known to change needles simply because I didn't like the feel. Maybe it was too slippery, and I would go, maybe it was on a metal needle and I would go down to a wood needle, because a wood needle tends to have what I call a little more drag. A fine polished needle is really terrific, but if you've got some silk in your yarn. A metal needle can actually be too slippery, too hard to keep your stitches on the needle. So that's how I determine it. It's by the feel, and what feels a particular way for me may not bother you at all. But so that some of that is by trial and error. And so if you find that you've got a needle that isn't working for you, guess what? You get to run back out to the knit shop and buy another needle. I will say this. I have bought inexpensive needles from the big box stores, and they're often bamboo and some metal needles. I have always been disappointed, and I will tell you why. Number one, my very favorite needle is an Addi needle. I'll show you an Addi needle here. Take it out of the box. And Addi happens to be made in Germany. They've made them, it's a family-owned business. I think they're like almost 100 years old. Can you imagine being all you do is make knitting needles, and it's been in the family for many, many years. But their shank is very, very highly polished. It's very, very smooth, and they have a nice point on their needle, and they have different points. There's a more dull pointed needle, and then they also have what's called a lace point, and it's very, very pointy. And there again, lace point is not always just for fingerling or web weight yarn. It just has to do with the twist and how it feels in your hand, because I've had some a little bit bulkier yarn that's been a super tight twist, and I've actually used a lace needle on it. So again, there's no fast rule. Just go with what feels right for you and what is working for you. But the Addi cable, this is the Addi cable, and it's very flexible. I don't know if that's going to be visible to you. I'll show you a cable that's not an Addi. I doubt very much, other than color, that you will be able to see the difference. But this cable here on this needle is far stiffer than this cable. And why is that important? Well, it just lays better once you've got your project on the needle. It just you're not fighting this curl, for one thing. And how do we get rid of the curl in any of these? You don't 100% get rid of this curl from storage. I see some people actually store their needles where they're draped, over a holder, and I think they even use like a toilet paper roll or something and drape them, and they're never curled back up. And that's okay if you've got a lot of space. They were hung on the wall, and I don't have that. So I work with my little box here, and when I put my needle away, I twist it around and feed the end through, and then it goes back in the packet. Well, how to get rid of that curl or soften it? I take a hot water, maybe not totally boiling, but close, a little bowl, and I put my cable, hold it down in the bowl for, I don't know, maybe a minute or so. I don't put the shank part in, and especially don't put the shank part in if you're working with a wood needle. But let this shank, or the cable, excuse me, sit down in that hot water, and right away, as soon as you take it out, stretch out your cable. You can't see both of my hands, but I'm stretching the cable out real straight, and wait for it to cool down. Just takes a short little time, and you might have to do that a couple of times, and then it relaxes this cable. But this stiffer cable never does relax as much as this Addi does. And so that's why I really like the Addi. The cable is just super nice to work with. The shanks are great to work with the right yarn, and they're consistent in their points. And I have not always found that to be true with some of the other needles. But there again, if you find one that you like and it's working for you, then use it. There's no rule. It's all about how does it feel to you. The one thing I will say, picking this Addi back up, get this so maybe you can see it here. This joint right here where the cable is attached to the shank, this is a critical part of your needle. I will say this, that this Addi is so smooth. I mean, you run it through your fingers and you really do not feel an edge there where the cable is attached. Now, on the other hand, this needle, I can tell you right now, I feel a real edge right there where these two match. Well, this particular needle happens to be a needle that is interchangeable with different cables. And so how that works is there's a little hole right here, and you put a little pin in there and you give this a twist, and you take this apart and you can put on a different shank. Well, that seems to make sense, right? You think you're gonna get a cost break. Well, you can. You do, because it's less expensive not to have to buy the whole set all the time. But I will tell you, I don't know, I've tried 4 different brands, and where this joint here is screwed together, you have quite a ridge. I can feel it with my finger. I've tried it with all the brands that are out there, and the yarn hangs up on that joint, and it hangs up here. Addi has somehow perfected that joint. It is so smooth. Now, maybe that doesn't bother some of you, but when I'm scooching my yarn across, and if it has something that it's hanging up on, drives me nuts. So that's the selling point for me on a needle, is if that is smooth. And I have traditionally found that Addi is consistent in how they manufacture their needles. And you may pay, I don't know, $2 more is all over another set, needle type. So for me, that little extra it's worth it. Needles, good needles are an investment. I think this Addi needle here probably, I'm going to say it's around $15, $16, maybe $17 if it's a longer cable. And on these others, it's just a couple of dollars difference. So that should not, hopefully, keep you from getting the better quality. It's not always, saving money does not always make for a best decision, in my opinion. So that's just one of the things I've learned the hard way. The other thing that I've bought, only one set. It's a complete set, exchangeable points on a cable, and you see them, you can get them like every cable size, every needle size, and maybe, I don't know, you could save probably $100 by buying one of those sets over, and maybe more, rather than buying individually. I don't encourage that, simply because, like I say, the joints, I've never found one that is smooth, and you're not going to use all of those needle sizes in that set. So you don't need every needle size. Maybe some people have, but I suspect that most of those needle shanks in different sizes don't get used. So that's just my personal opinion about the getting those sets. Here is a wood needle, and they're hardwood. There are some bamboo out that are less expensive in some of the stores, but be careful with bamboo because some of the lesser expensive ones do not have this real high polish, and they're not going to make you happy on a lot of the yarns that you want to use. This needle here again is one of those that the oh, I lied. I thought this one came apart. No, it isn't. This is not one that comes apart. So when I'm going to get the kink out of this cable, I'm very careful when I put this down in hot water not to get the wood shank into the hot water. But this is a needle that I use if the yarn has very much silk in it. I use this needle because this has a little bit of a drag to it. It feels smooth to my fingers, but the yarns react differently to the different shanks. So you don't have to start out buying a whole set of needles. Buy the needle that you need for a particular project. I will say this, once you open a package, a needle package, stores will not take needles back. And so you do want to be a little careful that you don't just buy something right away without asking some questions about it. And if you don't know or can't find somebody in the store that you feel comfortable with, find somebody that knits a lot and ask maybe to put your yarn on one of their needles and experiment. And the store might let you do that if they've got some needles, in the store. But buying the needle is it's a big decision because you don't want to have a bunch of needles that you just don't use. I use all my needles, but I knit a lot. And so, I can justify it, right? Because I make myself knit a lot. No, I've gathered these over the years. I didn't buy them all at one time, trust me. So that's my thoughts about needles. I hope that gives you something to think about if you're having to buy a needle for a project. And ask at the yarn store. They may indeed have some suggestions and as to what's going to work best with the particular kind of yarn that you're working with. Now, there's another needle that I have gotten this last year. Didn't know about them, and they are wonderful. Besides a circular needle, I use double pointed needles. Now, they're not always the most pleasant to work with because they're short, and you use them for making socks and allows you to knit in the round. But this, I don't know, several years ago now, Addie came out with what's called a Flexi Flips. Flexi Flips. And here's a set of Flexi Flips, and they're like a circular needle, but they have a short cable, and so they're very, very flexible. And instead of that, I don't even have any double pointed needles straight shaft without the cable in them. But these, when you've got your sock, or maybe you're knitting a hat and you've got your stitches all on these needles, this just all folds down in your hand, and it makes knitting on double pointed needles just wonderful. So this is my new find in the last couple of years, and these little critters that my little animal critters that I knit, so much of this is in the round, and I do it in the round. The pattern doesn't call for it to be in the round, but I knit it in the round so I don't have a seam to sew up. And these little, this is too big a size. I have a size 2 in these needles, and that's what I knit almost the entire little critter on, is these flexi flips, and they are so nice to work with. And if I didn't use the flexi flip, I would be knitting this on a magic loop, long cable needle, and these flexi flips are just so convenient, so you don't have all that extra cable to work with. So there's my COVID find. I found these at the beginning of COVID. I think they've been out for, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years. I don't know. I just am discovering them. And I only have 2 sizes at this point in time, but this is a size 2 here, and it's empty. My needles are in the other room, but I bought 2 sets of this size 2 because when I make socks, I use size 2 needle. And so I knit both socks at the same time. And by having 2 sets of the flexi flip, I knit one round in one for one sock, and then I pick up the next sock and I knit that round on the next sock. So both socks get done at the same time, but I don't have the magic loop that I'm having to struggle with. And those of you that have knitted socks understand what I'm saying about the magic loop, I'm sure. And so flexi flip, if you're a sock knitter and you haven't looked into them, I would just encourage you to do that, because it totally changed up how fun knitting socks is for me. So there, that's my knitting needle story. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is, and I will be curious what you have, and I'm hoping that you will share what you have by your side when you knit. This little metal tin box has been with me for a very, very long time. I don't even know where I got it. It says 72% dark chocolate. So I'm going to assume that I've had it for, I don't know, maybe 10 years or a little bit less. But this is by my side all the time when I'm knitting. And it's my go-to emergency box. When I need something in a hurry, this is my little treasure box. And I bet you have one or some kind of a box or pouch or something that you have close by your side. I think it would be fun to see what everybody has. In mine, I have scissors. That makes sense. Have a little needle counter that I don't use so much anymore because I actually use the counter on my iPhone. I do have a couple of cable needles here. These are great if you drop a stitch and you need something to catch it real quick, like until you can get it fixed. These little needle or cable holders, those are terrific. I don't know why I have this button. It goes on a granddaughter's sweater, so it was probably an extra and I just didn't know where to put it, so it's safe here. You know what these little things are? These go on the end of a knitting needle if you need to put a stopper on the ends so you know your stitches don't fall off. So I do have some of those. Those are good to have handy for quick. Have a whole little packet of all shapes and sizes of sewing needles. You always need to know where those are. Oh, and of course we have regular pins here. You know, you never know when you're going to need a straight pin, right? I have a variety of stitch markers, and you can use these for a lot of different things. I have little thin ones and I've got fatter ones, and I really like this little stitch marker right now. If you want to you know, a fine stitch marker to put on your needle without, these can take up too much space. They can make a space in your knitting if you're knitting with fine fine yarn. And so I do like these little ones for a lot of reasons. They work for more than just being a stitch marker. I have a stitch holder, always good to have that in a quick hurry. Crochet hook, that actually could get stored away. I don't use it anymore. Used to have it in my box and use it until this is my other little treasure that I came across here just in the last couple of years. And it's a gadget. It's a crochet hook at one end, and it's a pointed knitting, like a knitting needle at the other end. And it's much shorter than a crochet hook. Put the two side by side, and you can see it's, I don't know, 1.5 inches shorter. This is for correcting maybe a dropped stitch, or you quickly just need to catch or mark a stitch, something quickly. This is the cat's meow, and if you've ever had to do any frogging, what we call frogging, it's nothing more than having to take out a bunch of stitches. This little gadget is just wonderful. I don't know how I lived without it before. Well, I used a crochet hook, and this is much better than that. So that's in my box. A lot more little stitch markers. Like when I cast on, let's say I have to cast on 300 stitches, well, I like to mark every 50 stitch so I don't have to go back to the beginning. So I use little stitch markers for that. And so I have some round ones here and some that look, open up like little safety pins. I'm sure you've got a variety of them in your box too. And I've got some other sewing needles down here. For instance, I've got a circular needle. This little circular needle I use a lot in working with my little critters that I make. If you have to sew on buttons and that sort of thing for the eyes, this little circular needle is just really so helpful to get down in and be able to retrieve your needle. So that's what's in my box. And post what's in your box. Take a picture. Be brave. I keep telling you, people, to show me what you have, and I think everybody's kind of shy. Don't be shy. Let's see what your little treasure box might be. Much bigger than this, but this little one goes with me wherever I take my knitting. This is in my box, and I have used it so much it doesn't stay shut very well, so I usually have a rubber band around it because I have had it go flying open and have to pick everything up in a hurry. But this is my really go-to emergency kit right there. The other little thing I'm going to show you is one of my favorite bags, and my daughter and son-in-law got me this one year for Mother's Day. In fact, they got both of their mother-in-laws, and it's going to be kind of hard to really get a good picture of this. But it is a knitting bag you could drive over and not damage. I mean, I don't know what it's made out of, but trust me, I don't even think you could poke a hole in this. And I've had this now for, I bet, 10 years, and honestly, it does look almost like new. It opens up nice and big. Like I say, it's kind of hard on screen to give you a full view. I'll take some pictures and post. And when they gave it to me, down inside was a couple more bags, and these are project bags. They're terrific. They're like parachute fabric, so they aren't bulky. Have nice drawstrings on them. I use these project bags a lot. And this one is a little bit bigger. This one's I don't have projects in them right at the moment, but usually there is some kind of a project. Wanted to show you the inside of this bag, if I can get it opened up. I have lots of little pouches in here. Here's one that my sister made me, and it's got all kinds of treasures inside. This bag holds all of my knitting accessory tools. And I like it because we don't have a huge home, so I can conserve on space as much as possible. Everything I need and more fits into this bag. Besides, I can put a couple of knitting projects in it if we're going down to the coast. This goes with me. But it keeps me organized. And so I always know where things are. And these pouches have become great. I mean, I've got Post-it notes in here, and here's my crochet hooks that I seldom ever use because I'm not a crocheter. A few other little items down there. I don't think we can have too many little bags. I have a notebook in here. Firm believer of having a notebook and a pen close by. I could be far more organized with this if I chose to be. I don't want to be too organized. That would take too much fun out. But this is a project, one project, and I had to alter it. So my notes for doing this particular sweater is all here. And when you're knitting and you're making a change, I've learned, write it down. My calculations are all in here for different projects, and I actually can go back and look at this and pretty much figure out what project this was for. But have a notebook close by. Don't do it just on scratch paper if you're making a note about something or doing a calculation, because you'll lose it. I mean, I did many times. So finally I thought, well, that's so silly. It would be so easy just to put it in a notebook, and even if you never go back and refer to it again, it's handy for not having to find a piece of scratch paper. You always know you got this. And so that's in my bag. Here's another little pouch that my sister made me. Let's see what's in here. Sometimes there's random things in them. They're not always. Oh, see, another pair of scissors and a tape measure, of course. Tape measure, scissors. So try, and if you're not already organized, I personally find that the more organized we are, actually the more we get to enjoy what it is we're doing. This little pouch is where I put all my double-pointed needles. See, I said a few minutes ago I didn't know where they were. So just to compare, these needles here versus these here that have the cable, I can tell you, should have a project on here so I could really show you. Working with these is far more restricting than having these in your hand. You would just have to experience to understand. But I would encourage you, if you are one that, and I've used these double-pointed needles a lot. So I never complained about them before until I got experienced with these, and then it spoiled me. So that's what else is in this little bag. It are those double-pointed needles that I really don't use anymore. So this bag, you don't have to have one just like this. My point being, get yourself some good bags, sturdy bags. I could go out in the rain with this, and I will tell you my project will not get wet. This bag is nice and sturdy for that. So this is a travel bag. Actually, the brand name on this, because they bought it on the internet, is Tom BIHN. And I know he has made a lot of bags for different purposes and carriers and all kinds of things. And, he's got loops on here that you can attach things to. And he's got a great button-down system. Point being, whatever bag or bags that you have, be organized with them. And it just, I think, makes us enjoy our craft just that much more. It just kind of brings a little bit of order sometimes to what could be chaos. I can tell you there were times in my past years when I just got so busy sometimes I didn't put things away properly when I was through a project. And oh man, then you had to go find something, and then you end up making a bigger mess because you couldn't find what it was that you were looking for. I think there's something very valuable in being a little bit disciplined in our life. We don't want to be too disciplined. We don't want to take all the fun away. But I do think there are just some little things that we can do to make our craft just that much more enjoyable. It has worked for me. And so there you are. Those are my ideas. Talked a little bit about needles, what needles I buy, why I don't buy some. And maybe you got some good ideas. But I would love for you, excuse me, to post what your little sewing bin looks like. Maybe you're not a knitter. Maybe you're a quilter or some other kind of sewer. I'll bet you have some kind of a little box like this that you've got your treasures in. Post a picture. I'm going to post some pictures of just this on our site. And I just think, you know, this is a memory box. I can look in there, and there was another button I found just a second ago in there, and you know, brings back a memory of something I was working on. Anyhow, have a good day. We'll be talking to you again next week, I'm sure. Thank you for joining me, and have fun this week with your projects. Bye now.